Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is probably my most requested video for YouTube. Ever since I posted this video here on my Instagram, the questions about me breastfeeding came flooding in. The reason I took so long to make this video, it's a couple reasons. But mainly it's because I wanted to make sure that my breast milk was established before, you know, going out there and giving advice and telling everyone what I did. I just kind of wanted to make sure that everything I was doing I can like testify to and say yes, this worked. So that was the main thing. This is what my milk looks like now. So this is just a little bit apart from the last video to this video. So this is how much I'm making now. Before we get started, I do want to apologize if you hear Logan. He's just over there in the background. So if you hear little noises, that's just him putting himself to sleep. But I actually couldn't be filming this video at a more perfect time because it's October and it's actually, let me see, I want to say it like right. So October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And it is October 19th. And we're talking about breastfeeding today, and studies show that premature babies, like especially ones that are born, I think it's before 30 weeks, who are fed breast milk have better outcomes. So they've actually done studies on this, that fed breast milk, they have a higher rate of survival. And I've actually been looking into donating some of my supplies since I am over making milk right now. So there are ways that you can do that and help the cause of premature babies having a better outcome when they're born. I think it's because, or I was reading, it's because they don't process the formula as well as they do the breast milk. That's something that I'm definitely looking into. So before we get started, I want to put some stuff out there. By no means does all this milk that you see that I've been able to make up until this point imply that I've had an easy journey or that, you know, the milk just came to me and I didn't struggle, because that's absolutely not true. I had so many hardships when it came to breastfeeding, especially those first 2 weeks when Logan was born. They were so difficult, and I'm gonna get into why in a little bit. It does have to do with stuff that like happened at the hospital, but it was so hard. And you know, especially since you're going through postpartum too, and I'm a new mom, so all of this was super new to me. I had no like prior experience. I didn't know what I was doing. Anything that I was doing was me learning and YouTubing and Googling things, and then just finding kind of like a routine that ended up working for me. But I do feel so blessed and so grateful to have been able to breastfeed this long, and we're still going strong at 3 months. He's actually 3 months today, because it is a lot of work and it is a big sacrifice and a big responsibility. If you think about it, I'm basically his source of survival. I am his food supply. So without me, you know, he won't be eating every day. It is doable. So don't give up if you're struggling right now. It does get better. Everything with babies get better as time goes on. Also wanted to put out there that just because I'm such an advocate for breastfeeding, in no way am I trying to offend anybody that isn't or chooses not to breastfeed. It is completely your choice what you decide to do. Formula does have all the nutrients that your baby needs. This is just my personal journey and my personal choice that I made. And at the same time, I also don't want to discredit all of the breastfeeding mothers, because let me tell you, like, it is really hard. Like, I don't say that lightly. Breastfeeding is so hard. So I first want to start off by telling you my actual story and my journey, because it does play a lot into kind of how I got started with breastfeeding, and it also does have a lot to do with how it affected my supply and the whole situation. So when Logan was born, he was actually born jaundice. I don't know too much about what jaundice is. I know it's like the amount of bilirubin that you have in your bloodstream, and it's just not good for them. But it's super common. Like, I hear all the time that it's super common. We didn't end up finding out that he was jaundice until a couple of hours before we were leaving the hospital. and I was so devastated, mainly because I didn't know what was happening. Like, I didn't know what jaundice was, but also because we were so ready to take him home. I was so over being in the hospital, and we just wanted to go home. And this was such a, like, it elongated our stay at the hospital for like 2 days, and at this point I was so over it. And aside from that, like I said, it did affect my breastfeeding. So when I'm super fortunate that when Logan was born, he latched on right away. I have never really had a problem with him latching, which is more than I can say for a lot of women, but I'm super fortunate for that. So that wasn't any issue. But when we found out that he had the jaundice, basically the way you get rid of it is by 2 ways. There's this there's like lighting therapy that you do that takes the yellow away from their skin, and the yellowness is caused by the jaundice. So that's one way. And then the other way you get rid of the actual bilirubin in his blood is by him pooping. And as you can see where I'm going with this, for you to poop, you have to be supplemented. You have to have something to poop. You have to have milk. I was only like 2 days postpartum, so my milk supply definitely was not in yet. What I was feeding him at this point was just the colostrum, which I'm told, and you know, the doctors and the nurses reassured me that his stomach is like this big. Like, it's so small when they're first born that your colostrum is more than enough to fill them up. So I wasn't too worried about feeding him at this point. But because this whole jaundice situation happened, they were kind of telling me that they wanted to get the jaundice out of his system as fast as possible. It's not that I was against giving him the formula. It was that I was very anxious at this particular moment because I just had a baby, okay? Like, you guys can't, if you've never had a baby, you don't know how emotional and stressed and like your hormones are making you go through so much that even like the smallest thing will make you like irritated, like agitated. So that's where I was at this point. The nurses were basically telling me, let us give him formula so that he can poop. And in the beginning I said no. I said I don't want to do that. I can breastfeed as much as he feels hungry. I'm here, so I can do that. The problem was that they were keeping him, but it was already time for me to be discharged from the hospital. So I was no longer there with a room, and the only place I would basically be able to be was the waiting room. We were told that we were leaving this day, so we kind of already packed everything and we're ready to go. And we also wanted to go home and like shower. You know, we've been in the hospital for like 2 days now. So what our plan was to go home and shower and just like get some things together to come back to the hospital and stay there. I had told the nurse that I wanted to breastfeed, so if at any point it felt like he was hungry or they felt like he needed to be fed, to give us a call, because we were literally 10 minutes away from the hospital. We gave them our number. We told them this is what we want to do. And I don't know what happened, but I think, well, I do kind of know what happened. So the way it works in hospitals is nurses work by shifts. So we had just given the nurse who was on that shift our number, but when they did like the shift transfer, I guess, nobody told whoever was coming in that this was what was going on. So no one called us. I figured that it was normal that no one called us because he wasn't eating that much. And I had pumped a little bit, like what's the word, babe? I had expressed some colostrum for him, and they were keeping that in the fridge. So I wasn't too much in a rush or too worried that they hadn't called yet. But when we got to the hospital and we were speaking to the first nurse, I kind of already knew, like in my gut, what they had done. Like, I just had a strong feeling that I was not gonna like what they were about to tell me. So the nurse is telling us, yeah, we supplemented him, we gave him the Similac. And again, I don't have a problem with the formula. What I had a problem with was what was gonna happen now forward. So now he's had more food than what I can give to him, than what I was making. And that was my biggest fear, that I wouldn't be keeping up with what he was eating, especially now that they had given him this amount of food. that I wasn't producing. So that was my biggest fear, that I wasn't gonna be able to produce as much food as what they were already giving him at the time. And like I said, I don't have a problem with the formula, but this is something that I had set in my mind from the very beginning. I said the moment I got pregnant that I really wanted to breastfeed. My sister-in-law actually has 2 boys, and we would always talk about it. She was able to breastfeed and like make a lot of milk when she had her babies, and we would always talk about it, and like she was basically my like motivation, like the reason why I wanted to breastfeed so bad. And it's just the nicest, like to me it's the most bonding I get with him. Like I know I can hold him as often as I want to, and I can cuddle and kiss him, but there's just something about the fact that I'm his food source and that like I can give him that makes me just so happy to do it, you know. I don't know, that's just how I feel. But yeah, at that point in the hospital, I just decided that what was best, because we really wanted to take him home as soon as possible, was just to let them formula feed him. And I was also, I forgot to mention this, but I was also afraid that he wasn't gonna like my milk, because you know the Similac, I'm pretty sure it's like a lot sweeter, and like it has more stuff in it. Like they formulate it that way, so it's thicker and stuff like that. My breast milk is more water based, so I was afraid that he wasn't gonna like my breast milk as much after having the formula. But nonetheless, that's what I had decided to do at that time. I let them formula feed him, and they checked him again for jaundice. He was still quite jaundiced when they let us take him home, but he didn't need to be like hospitalized for it. Like he didn't need to be under the light anymore, which was the only reason why they were keeping him in the hospital at the time. So we were able to take him home, and then within the next 2 days we were supposed to take him to his pediatrician, and they were going to check him for jaundice. So these next 2 days weren't particularly hard in feeding him. It was more so that I didn't know if he was getting enough food. And let me tell you, there's no worse feeling than that. I felt so guilty because I just didn't know. Like our breasts don't come with like numbers on it or a meter for us to know how much food they're actually eating. And aside from that, there's no right answer. Like I feel like I would ask the doctor, I would ask the nurses, I would ask everyone, how much should he be eating? And everything was just like, eat as much as he'll have. Like he can just eat as much as he'll eat. There wasn't a certain amount, there wasn't ounces that anyone was giving me. So it was just, I was playing it by ear. And it was so hard because when he would cry, I didn't know if it was a cry for hunger or for comfort or for what he was crying for. And I just kind of had to guess the whole time. And I was also, so they say that your milk comes in around day 4 or 5. And my milk did come in. I was making milk, but it wasn't like a crazy amount. And up to this point, I was still only hand expressing. I don't even want to get into that, but I had a whole situation with the with my health insurance where it took so long for us to get our electric pump. After like so when we took him back to the hospital on the 3rd day, he was still jaundiced. And again, they were making me feel like I was the worst mother in the world because they kept offering me to formula feed, but I wanted to go with my gut and just keep feeding him my breast milk. And I would do anything to make it work. So I was hand expressing around the clock, just making sure that I had enough food to feed him. I was putting him on my boob, I was hand expressing and bottle feeding him. I was doing anything possible to make my milk come in and for me to be able to just strictly feed him breast milk, because I also didn't want to like confuse him or make him colicky, like going back and forth from breast milk to the formula. So it was just my gut that if I kept doing what I was doing, eventually everything was gonna work out, and it did work out. So after we took him to that appointment, we decided that I could not keep hand expressing because I looked crazy. I was literally there with bags under my eyes, so tired, wasn't sleeping, and just hand expressing over and over and over again, trying to get food for him. And so my boyfriend was like, I can't stand to see you like this anymore. I'm gonna go get you a hand pump, like a manual pump, and we're gonna go with that. And let me tell you, this hand pump literally saved my relationship, my breastfeeding relationship with Logan. Like, it literally saved everything. Because when I finally got the pump, I don't know if it made my milk come in necessarily, but my milk was coming out a lot easier, obviously, than hand expressing. Like, it was actually coming out a lot faster. Now I do have the electric pump, and I don't know, people say that like it's better. I've heard that people like love it more. For me, I don't know if it's because I have this relationship with the hand pump, with the manual pump, that I say this, but I don't like the electric pump. I feel like it's too kind of like a robot. Like, I don't feel like it, like when I do it myself, I feel like I'm actually making the milk come out like at the speed I want it to and stuff like that. With the electric pump, I just don't feel as involved, or like as much milk comes out for me. But that's just me. Like, you have to go and see what works for you. But yeah, those 2 weeks were brutal. Like, I have never, I think, cried so much in my life, and it was just the feeling of guilt of him not getting enough food, of me making those choices of not formula feeding him. Sometimes he would latch on and like latch off. Like, it was this continuous latching and unlatching, and he would just cry and cry and cry for so long, and I didn't know if it was the milk, I don't know if it was colicky, I don't know what was happening. But I'm here to tell you that it's just normal baby behavior. So don't get discouraged when you're breastfeeding and, you know, your baby is crying a lot, that it's because of the breastfeeding or it's because of the food. That's definitely like newborn regular baby behavior. And I feel like that's why a lot of women tend to give up, because it's super stressful and it's just a lot of work, and you just don't know with babies. Remember, babies don't speak, so everything that you do, it's just you feeling it out and seeing how it goes for you. I also wanted to touch a little bit on cluster feeding. That's the main thing that women would ask me or were telling me about. It was like, how did you deal with cluster feeding and stuff like that, that their baby wanted to be on the boob 24/7 all night. They weren't getting any sleep. And so the only thing I have to say referring to cluster feeding, or what people were telling me, that they were just always, the baby always wanted to be on the boob. They kept feeling like they were playing catch up. Some women do have that like problem latching. If you were pumping to feed out of a bottle, you guys were saying that you felt like you were always playing catch up. Like, you would pump and then the baby would eat it and he would already want the next bottle, and you hadn't even gotten there yet to like had the time to pump because of the cluster feeding, because they wanted to feed and feed and feed. The only thing that I can say for that is that it's normal, guys. Like, your baby is getting into a routine just like you are. They don't know when they're full. And that's just how it is. Like, they don't know when they've had enough. There have been times that I've fed him and I know he's full because he spits up the rest. So babies are also learning as you are learning with them. And you cannot look at breastfeeding like a chore, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Like, I know it feels like you're doing so much work and like you're always trying to catch up, but you can't look at it like a chore. You have to look at it like it's just your bonding time with your baby, because if you don't, it's gonna drive you crazy and it's gonna make you want to quit. So let your baby cluster feed. Let him feed as much as he wants. I know it's like not annoying, but I know you don't want to be sitting there with a baby attached to your boob all day, but it's okay. Like, let him do that. You know, watch your marathon of whatever it is that you're watching. You're still recovering from postpartum, so you shouldn't be doing much work anyways. So just lay around with your baby and let him feed, or him or her feed as much as they'd like to, and it's gonna work out at the end. Trust me. Like, I've been there. I know it's hard and you feel like everything you're doing is wrong, or like you're never gonna get to that point. But it's not true. Like, I'm at that point with Logan where I know when he's hungry, I know how often he eats, and my milk supply is there for when he needs it. And I'm actually oversupplying to the point where I have food for when I go to work, and I have food for the future, because as soon as those teeth come in, I'm definitely not going to be putting him on my boob as often. Another question you guys had, I probably will only be breastfeeding up until the 6-month point or up until he has teeth, because that terrifies me, and I just feel like he doesn't need to be on my boob as much. I'll still be breastfeeding, like I'll still be giving him the actual breast milk. He just won't be eating off of me anymore. Now I'm gonna get into the main portion of the video, because you guys want to know what I did to make my supply come in more, to increase my milk supply. So this is what I pump into right here. Like I said, I'm using the manual pump. So this is what I use, and the amount of milk that I'm making, I basically can fill up one of these with each boob. But because he eats off of one of them, I'll only fill one of these up, and he'll eat from the other one, if that makes sense. So if you think about it, I'm able to fill one of these up every time he has a feeding, and he feeds every 3 hours. So this is 5 ounces, and if he's eating 6 to 8 times a day, I'm sorry guys, my math is not is nowhere near where it should be. Okay, so I'm basically able to make 40 ounces of milk a day times 2, because he's eating from the other boob. So I'm making a lot of milk. And I'm going to show you guys what I do when I feel like my milk supply is low, or when I feel like I just want to make a little more milk. So the first thing, this is what I did as soon as I got out of the hospital. This was what I was doing, and it's kind of like not an old wives' tale, but it's just like what my mom told me that she did when she was breastfeeding me. And what she would do was put raw oatmeal, just like the actual oats. She would soak them in water overnight and then drink it. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can drink it just as it is. I don't mind the pieces of oats. Some people do, so if you want to, you can strain it or you can blend it. So I would do a variation just depending on what I felt like doing. I would make smoothies out of them. Like I would put fruits in it, like bananas and stuff like that. You can put cinnamon in it. You can literally put anything that you want into it to like make it taste better for you. If you want to be extra, you can get like spices, like pumpkin spice or like anything. Just make it, you know, make your routine fun for you. So in the beginning, I was doing it just either in the water or I would blend it. So I would do half water. I would leave the oats in and I would do half milk just because I didn't like the consistency when it was too watery. So I did it with some milk, like some regular cow milk. You can do it with almond milk, you can do it with coconut milk, you can literally do it with any type of milk. And that's what I was doing in the beginning. And oatmeal is such a big, it's probably the #1 thing when it comes to making more breast milk. I don't know what it is, but there's just something in oatmeal that makes your breast milk come in more. Another thing that you can do, and I forgot to mention earlier, a really important and big part of breastfeeding, that's you. Don't forget to take care of you, to take care of yourself, to be in a good, stress-free, like mental space, if you know what I mean. I don't know why, but I think it's so crazy that there's no science to breastfeeding. Like, it's not something that you can go into books and see, or that you can go tell your doctor, hey, I'm not, you know, making milk. Like, it's all nature. There's no science to breast milk. And so a big part of breastfeeding is your mental health and being in a good place, being happy. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. Like, you can't be stressed. You have to be in a good place. You have to be happy. You have to be calm. And all of those things are gonna increase your breast milk, and it's gonna send like signals to your brain to make more breast milk. I don't know how it works, but that's just what it is. And one more thing is, like, that doesn't have to do with what you're eating, is doing skin to skin with your baby. That is so big when it comes to making more breast milk. The more skin to skin you do, like I said, there's no science to it, it's all nature, the more your body knows to make milk. So do all the skin to skin, and that's like the best part. I love doing skin to skin with my baby. I would do it so much. It works in a way where like it sends signals to your brain that the baby is hungry, or that the baby wants more milk, or that you have a baby. I'm telling you, our bodies are designed to do this, and it's in the craziest way, like I don't even know. But yeah, other things that you can eat. So these were my favorite oatmeal cookies to have, and they are sugar-free, so that's good if you're trying to, you know, be on a diet and stuff like that. Which, let me tell you, breastfeeding definitely helped me lose weight. Like, your body weight just drops, and it makes sense because you're basically giving all of your nutrients and everything to the baby, so that's another plus on breastfeeding. But yeah, these are so good. They have like barely any calories, but they still taste really good. Like, they're really yummy, they're really tasty. That was something else that I would like munch on. And one more way that you can have another way that you can have the oatmeal, if you don't feel like going through that whole process of like making it yourself or soaking it yourself, you can just buy the oatmeal made already. So this is avena. It's the same thing. It's milk. It's oatmeal milk. So this is already made for you. This one actually comes with cinnamon in it. They have a bunch of flavors. They have like strawberry and stuff like that. So when I didn't feel like going through the whole process, or when I forgot to like put it in overnight for the oats to soak, I would just have some of this. And then my like ultra secret friend actually put me onto this because I had no idea, and it's my favorite thing. I'm actually drinking one right now. But this is called Malta, and I grew up on this when I was little. I remember we used to drink these all the time. But yeah, it's basically, unfortunately, it's not like good for you. It has no benefits at all. But I love this stuff. It's just, what is it? It's technically just like a bunch of corn syrup. Is that what it is? Like, it's just a bunch of sugar, but it has a lot of like whey in it. I don't know what the word is. Starch, something. There's something in there that, like, whenever I feel like I'm like super low with my breast milk, this is literally like, I'll have one of these and I kid you not, my milk will come in. They do come in different brands, and I mentioned that because this one is the one that I like the most because it has like, it tastes the least sweet. But there are other brands if you want to try them, but I love this. I mentioned earlier I didn't really have troubles with the whole latching, but if you do, I've heard that these let me show you guys. These are little nipple covers. So they're kind of self-explanatory. You put them on your nipple and it's gonna protect it. So if the reason that you feel like you don't want to breastfeed is because you're in pain, this is helpful because it's gonna protect the area. So that whole like raw thing from the baby sucking so much is not gonna happen. And it's also really good if you're having latching problems because it's sort of like an artificial nipple. So it's a lot easier for them to grab onto and suck. So I've heard that these are like amazing. I've never gotten to use one because I never had an issue. But I'm planning on maybe testing these when his teeth come in and seeing like when he first starts teething, because I feel like that's going to be painful, and that's when I'll kind of use these. But yeah, that's everything that I use to increase my milk supply. Like I said, do lots of skin to skin. Everything that I ate here, I think food wise, I can really attest to. Like, I really believe that they have helped me. Also, if you're not 100% sure if your baby's eating or eating enough, there are some things that you can do. Always check for Pampers, of course. If their Pampers are wet, then you know that they're eating. And don't be alarmed because breastfed babies don't poop as often. I was told they can literally go like 7 days without pooping, and it's normal because they're taking all the nutrients in and there's not much waste. So don't be alarmed if that's what's happening. The main takeaway from this video is, you know, don't give up. Don't always jump to the conclusion that you're doing something wrong. You're just learning with the baby. The baby is learning how to feed, his routine. You're both getting into a routine. Don't worry about the cluster feeding. Like I said, just go and feed him as much as they want to eat. You just sit on your couch and drink your freaking iced pumpkin oatmeal milk, and just feed. And all of these things, it's not gonna last forever. You're not gonna always feel like you're like supply and demand. You're not always gonna feel like you're being rushed to make milk, if that makes any sense. Soon it's just going to become a regular everyday thing where you just put your baby on and he's just going to eat for you. And your milk does establish at some point where your body just knows when to make it and knows how much to make. So just don't worry so much. Always go with your gut too, with your intuition. People are always going to say different things to you. People are always going to say, you know, just formula feed or just do this, but just do what you feel is best for you and your baby. Breast milk has so much to it, and I just feel so fortunate and like grateful that that's the milk that he's getting. And he's so chunky, like he's the cutest little chunky thing, and he's growing so fast. And I'm so proud of myself too, because when I went back to the doctor and they asked me what I was feeding him, I was able to say just breast milk, and they were super like impressed that I was able to do it. That is sort of my routine. So what I would do was, while he was feeding, I would pump one side just to always have milk just in case. That's how I do it for work too. I want to be able to use the breast milk that I stored away to make his meals in the future. So what I'm doing now is give him a fresh bottle every time I have to leave, and we just refrigerate it, because the milk can be refrigerated. I forgot to mention, milk can stay out for about 4 to 6 hours in regular room temperature. It can be refrigerated for like 1 to 2 days. I think maybe 3, but I would personally only do max 2 days. And that's what we do. So I will pump for him and he'll have a fresh bottle every day. Oh, and I did want to say one more thing. And that is about after you've established your milk and you have this routine and your milk is coming in, like that's just how it's going to be. Like your milk is going to come in the way you trained it, and you cannot forget to pump. This is so big, you guys. When I went back to work, I thought, you know, like, oh, I don't need to pump, like it's okay, I'll just feed him when I get back home and stuff like that. And boy was I wrong. I ended up getting super engorged and I almost had mastitis, or I don't know if I did, but my breast was so hard. It was the most painful thing I had ever experienced. Like it was so bad to the point where I couldn't even lift Logan. Like I couldn't even breastfeed him because it was so painful. And the only thing that helped was putting like heating pads on it, and eventually it did go away by me kind of like just pumping until all the milk came out and it went back to normal. But don't think that you can just go without pumping. Like that's such a big thing. Don't just throw it in the back of your head and think that you're gonna be fine, because you're gonna end up with really engorged boobs. And that, I'm telling you, it was the most excruciating. It was worse than child labor. Like it was so bad. So wherever you need to pump, just stop and do it. Like don't even feel ashamed or anything. And I have the best like coworkers. They're always like asking me if I need to go pump and stuff like that. So make it known at your job, at your school, wherever it is that you are, that you need to pump. It's a normal thing. Don't ever feel ashamed of it. And that's something else that you guys were asking me, how I kind of like breastfeed in public. I personally have no shame. Like I'm not gonna whip it out like just in front of everyone. I try to make it, comfortable for myself and still cover up as much as I can, but I'm not gonna not feed my baby because I'm out in public or because it makes someone else uncomfortable. Like I just think that's so dumb. We need to normalize breastfeeding already, because it's just our baby eating. And if you're comfortable with like watching an R-rated movie and seeing this on TV, then like you feeding your baby should not, like it's nowhere near gross or like inappropriate. I think it's so like bad when people think that it's inappropriate to feed your baby because you're exposing yourself. Like that's just how it is. I need to give my baby food. And at this point, like, I don't even think about it. I don't even care. I honestly just do it wherever I am, whenever my baby's hungry. But yeah, guys, I hope this video was helpful to you. If you're struggling, that this video has somewhat helped you and provided some answers for things that you're going through. I cannot repeat it enough. It's only like this in the beginning, and I promise, like, it will get better. If it's something of pain, like, I'm sorry that I can't be more of a help to that, because I honestly didn't experience too much pain. I always use the balm that I showed you guys in my postpartum video. So if I'm ever in pain, I do use that, but it's nothing like out of this world that I can't handle. So I'm sorry if that's the problem that you're having. And also, in no way does formula feeding make you a bad mom. It doesn't make you any less of a mom or any less of anything because you decide to formula feed. It has all the nutrients your baby needs. It has everything that your baby needs to drink too. This is just what I really wanted to do, and I'm so happy that I was able to accomplish it. And also know that just because you're breastfeeding doesn't mean that it's all on you. Breastfeeding is definitely a team effort. There's so much that your boyfriend or your significant other, your husband, can do for you. And that's just in terms of them being there for you, helping you, getting things that you need, making you feel comfortable if you're in pain, holding the baby, you know, like anything that you need. It's still a team effort. Don't feel like you need to do this alone. And guys, don't feel like you have no say or like no participation in it, because you definitely can help in a lot of ways. If I missed anything, I'm so sorry. You guys can like DM me on Instagram or anything like that if I didn't get to a question, but I feel like I covered everything. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.